of all, I would like to thank you, all of you who are coming in person in this meeting room. And I would like also to thank all the people connected online for your interest. First, I would like to start to explain you why Flying Green is so important to us. So first of all, Flying Green is one of the 10 flagships of our DG Raising the Bar program. So it was really important for us to deliver. And then, you know, it was a long journey to come at this point today, because, you know, there were a lot of expectation on Flying Green, and we wanted to give you a good platform, giving you our data, our expertise, and some tools to help you on your decarbonization journey. And I must say, when we released our first version back in July 2024, it was quite a limited version, that's clear. But since then, you know, we released 2 other versions. And it's also thanks to some of you who are connected online, who are here in the room, because you provided your feedback about what functionalities needs to be deployed, what are the priorities that we needed to consider. And all that journey, you know, was possible thanks to that support. And now I must say, I'm very proud to share this new Flying Green platform with you, because the team spent a lot of time on it. And by the way, all of that would not have been possible without the team. And today, the team is going to speak. So for the different pillars, you know, you will have different speakers. All of them have heavily contributed to that work. And so for the ClimAdapt pillar, Tamara and Rachel is the lead, she's just next to me, and she tries to finish her PhD. But I was not supposed to tell you that, you know, but she's under pressure. But still, you know, she was able to deliver it. And then for NetZero, we will have Pascal and Antonio, Pascal leading the NetZero pillar. Then for fueling decarb, it will be Laurent and Pierre-Louis, with Laurent leading also the work on fueling decarb. And finally, for decarb fin, it will be Costas, Sabine, and Pierre-Louis, with Costas leading the work on that pillar. And of course, now all of that is possible because we had an excellent program manager, which is Tamara, just next to me. And I spoke already too much, so I'm going to stop there, and I will give the floor to Tamara for the rest. But I really hope you will enjoy this session. This is really important because we try to tailor it to your needs. We received some feedback in the past, and it's good for us that we were able to provide such an event in which we are going to share some of our feedback and use cases, and then you will be in a better position to understand how to use that platform. And I really hope that you will feel that it's useful for your work. And yes, I wish good luck to the team as well. So Tamara, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to be very brief before my colleagues actually deep dive and showcase each pillar and the use cases that we selected for you today. What I wanted to say is that over the past 2 years, we have spoken, I think, with hundreds of different stakeholders, some of you probably, so with the airports, ANSPs, with the OEMs, with the financial institutions, any type of institution that we thought it's important for us actually to bring the knowledge to the table so that we can shape the Flying Green and the functionalities around the questions and the problems that were raised. And Flying Green is not just a tool. It's becoming a very much the ecosystem. It's a live platform that is shaped, built by us and our stakeholders. It brings together a variety of information, data, models, and user-driven scenarios to help you to solve decision-making problems, operational problems, and something actually that can help you on your sustainability challenges or in your decarbonization paths. You will see through the use cases and examples that we have chosen for you today, different type of dashboards, modeling tools, and intelligence that you can extract from the tool to help you in this on this journey. So what can you expect today? As I said, first and most important, our goal is very simple today. We want to get you very comfortable with the tool. So we want to show you how you can use the tool and how you can extract the intelligence from the tool that can serve your purpose. So we have selected a couple of use cases, real life examples to explain this. You will be more than welcome actually to ask the questions and interact with the experts either during the sessions or during the lunch break to ask the different questions, to ask about your own use cases, to present the problems you have, because as I said, the platform is still live. We are co-developing platform with you. So we're building the platform with you for you. And last but not least, we want to build the user community. So from, say, consultation group that we had in the past or so far, we want to build the user community that can thrive from this use of the platform. So you will see that in the near future, we'll be providing the micro-learning tailored to the specific needs or use cases around the Flying Green. In the fall this year, we will offer the training with the help of our colleagues from the Luxembourg. And also, we're going to offer you a tailored support. So as of September this year, you will be in a position to write to us to ask our help with a specific problem that you have, and we can help you using the Flying Green how to solve that. So this is the plan for today. Obviously, you don't have to stay for every session. I applaud you if you do. But we have divided the day in 4 distinct sessions for each pillar. So the first 2 sessions in the morning are around the NetZero and the ClimAdapt. You saw the times there. And the second 2 after the lunch break is starting at 13:30 is the fueling decarb and the decarb fin. So as I said, once again, thank you very much for joining us today in person or live online. I hope you will enjoy what my colleagues will show you now. And if any questions, please don't hesitate to either ask them through the chat, and we will try to answer all of them. For the people here physically present, by all means, come and talk to us during the lunch break. We will probably stay here for a while, actually, to answer all your questions. So without further ado, I will call my colleague Pascal, who will open the sessions with the NetZero pillar. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Tamara, for the introduction. My name is Pascal Hop, and I will introduce the demonstration with regards to the NetZero pillar, one of the 4 pillars that Tamara just showed. And I will use, let's say, a demonstration of about 30 minutes with some possibilities to ask questions afterwards for the last 15 minutes. I've just included an introduction slide just for you to have an overview of what NetZero will be. But rather than to show, let's say, the different functionalities that are available on the NetZero pillar, I'd like to show you a demonstration because I think that will provide you a bit better information about what it exactly is. I need to, I think, press escape, go to the elements that I prepared. The first 3 are mine. Okay, very good. So this is the live platform that is currently already there. If you go to the EUROCONTROL website or Google EUROCONTROL Flying Green, you will have a link to the Flying Green platform. And at the top, you will see the 4 pillars. If you press NetZero, you will enter here. And before I explain exactly what you can see on the platform, because you see a lot of things, I think it's important to mention that you take note of the disclaimers that we mentioned also on the platform. and of the user manual so that you fully understand what situation is that we want to present to you. So we present results with regards to fuel burn, emissions, exhaust emissions, net emissions, operational improvements, and so on and so forth. But by no means we are trying to tell you what the situation will be for the future. We are just presenting a picture based on the default values that we have in our aviation outlook. But the platform specifically is for the stakeholders to introduce your own values from your local situation and to see what the effects and the impacts are on several elements, fuel burn, emissions, costs, etc. So this is just a starting point, but it is for you to use in your efforts to assess your emission picture. Now let's dive into what you can see on the platform. What is the main screen that you see, or the main graph that you see, the emission graph, is basically a collection based on EUROCONTROL operational data. So we use the radar data so the most accurate data that we have available in the network management systems. We use that data to provide a reference picture. In this case, that will be 2024. And what you'll see is that we use the projections, the traffic predictions from the Aviation Outlook 2050 and our emission modeling tools to both provide you with projections for fuel burn towards the future and projections for emissions towards the future. Now, the top line that you see is basically the exhaust emissions as if nothing would happen with regards to improvement measures towards 2050. And then you see a couple of lines, a couple of colors indicating the CO2 reduction potential from fleet renewal, from fleet revolution, from operational improvements, and the blue part is from SAP. Which then results finally in the green bottom line, which are net emissions. So those net emissions is basically taking into account operational improvements, life cycle assessment values from the sustainable aviation fuels. Sustainable aviation fuels will be very much presented in the afternoon session by my colleague Laurent. But this is basically what then results in terms of net emissions, and then the white part still remains, and that needs to be offset by market-based measures. And taking into account a couple of assumptions with regards to fuel prices, CO2 allowances, CORSIA allowances, etc., we sort of construct the additional environmental cost graph for specific airlines. Now, you see on the left side the potential to select an area, a network, or you can select a state, or you can select a functional airspace block, or an ASP, or an airport. And how we can do this is by using the trajectories that we have from the radar data and deconstructing them into segments based on milestone intersections, geographical intersections, airspace intersections, and so on. So we have all these segments with their fuel burn and with their emissions based on the emission modeling tools that we have available. And just by adding segments in a particular view, you can construct your results with regards to fuel burn and emissions in the different areas. So here you see, for instance, the ECAC network, but we have all different networks available in the portal as well. So you can go to EU27 and you will see the UK, obviously, and Norway not eliminated, but excluded. We have the EUROCONTROL network. So we have these several networks. But we do also have that for state. By default, we go to Belgium, maybe because EUROCONTROL is headquarters is situated in Brussels, obviously. And then based on those intersections with the Belgian border, you can see again the segments that we have on the platform being put together, providing you with the situation of emissions and fuel burn. Now, we have two different views, an area focus and a full trajectory focus. So the area focus will provide you with the emissions and fuel burn only inside the area that you selected. But sometimes it's more convenient and more interesting to show, let's say, the full trajectory fuel burn and emission results. And that's, we have to go to a different database because we don't have all the radar data, let's say, globally. So we have to use a different database from our colleagues in Brittany, but then we can go to the full trajectory focus. So we have those two different options to play with. Exactly. Yeah.
Which point?
Entry and exit into the area.
Okay.
So, for instance, take a flight from Brussels to New York. The area focus will give you the emissions from Brussels to the border of Belgium, and the full trajectory focus will take into account the emissions and fuel burn from Brussels all the way to New York. But because we don't have the radar data outside the European airspace available, we have to take some assumptions about the trajectory flown afterwards. So that's less accurate information, but still very useful information. So that's the difference between the two. And you can imagine, of course, that if you are talking about fuel burn or fuel requirements from an airport point of view, for instance, it is more important that you have an understanding of the full trajectory fuel requirements than on the area fuel requirements, because otherwise you have way too less fuel. So if you go to a state, you can basically see the situation based on the EUROCONTROL forecast. You can filter the situation or the flight types or the flight phases or the market segments, however you like. But like I said, there are what-if options. So we provide you with default values that emerge from the aviation outlook reports, the EUROCONTROL aviation outlook reports, resulting in those pictures. But in some other, let's say, reports, different assumptions have been applied, and you would be able to apply those different assumptions on the platform. So you can choose how much SAF you are thinking will be applied for your local situation. We start with the Refuel EU mandate, but you can deviate from that. You can choose what aircraft renewal programs will deliver in your specific area. So you can go to do nothing, or you can go very high in terms of fleet renewal. Fleet revolution you can input. So that's based. So this is typically electric flights, hybrid flights, and hydrogen flights you can enter. By the way, we are updating the functionality for even let's say continuous developments after these sessions. But you can also input many different views with regards to operational improvements per flight phase. So the taxi out phase, in climb, cruise, descent, and so on. Yes, please.
Okay, so the percentages shows percentage of fleet, or what is the percentage showing? Everywhere, you know, even for renewal, you have, when you hover over, you'll see now 17.4%. So it means that.
Sorry. This means that by 2015, you would get 17.4% CO2 reduction because of fleet renewal. But you can change that. You can go to all the way to 0, or you can go all the way to 35%. So, for instance, typically in the EUROCONTROL aviation outlook, we assume a 17% to be reached by 2050. If you look at Destination 2050 reports, they have a higher number. So, if you want to start from that perspective, you can input those assumptions from the Destination 2050 reports and see what it would mean in your local situation, depending on the selection that you have made. Same for revolution. We typically think 2 to 3% by 2050. Alliance for Zero Emission Aircraft typically thinks about 30% for 2050. So depending on your situation, you can enter these elements. So those are the, I'm always a bit confused about which color this is, but orange, pinkish, and the yellow colors are typically for the renewal and for the revolution part. Then if you look to the, I also don't know what that color is, purple something. Those are typically the operational improvements, and we don't want to give you, let's say, or we want to provide you with the options to input your operational improvements. We don't know exactly what those are in your particular area because there's many operational improvements possible in different areas. So we start with roughly, let's say, overall to something like between 6 and 12% as default values, but you are able to input your values again. We are not prescribing what would be the operational improvement potential. We are just indicating what typically operational improvements are for some of the operational implementations.
So the default values that are presented when you open this are your assumptions, let's say.
Yes, they are again based on assumptions from EUROCONTROL Outlook reports. But I will show you later a use case that you can really change those settings so that you have a better view on what an operational improvement would do in your specific area. Also, you can input, but not in detailed level, but you can input different price levels for ETS CO2 allowances, for CORSIA allowances, for jet fuel price, and for SAF price. Now, Laurent will again show you way more detail with regards to SAF prices. But for the moment, if you have seen by any chance the EUROCONTROL Aviation Outlook, we are normally thinking in low, base, and high scenarios, and the prices associated to those low, base, and high scenarios are covered here as well. And that, of course, would have an impact on the cost element. So if you select a low ETS price, you would see some changes in the cost graph below. For the jet fuel prices and for the SAF prices. So you can enter those as well. For the rest, we have, let's say, summarized cumulative emissions for the selections that you've made in the graph that you see top right, and a bit more detailed results per category if you would select fleet renewal, so that you have a bit of better perspective of the single, let's say, operational improvement that you have introduced. Now, what we have added last time for the last release is typically the ANSP views, and you can see that generated a lot of additional intersections in the methodology that we applied. But basically, all these areas that you see in that very detailed map here are able to be selected, and you can see typically from your ANSP operational point of view the different numbers again, and you can play with it in terms of operational improvement. And on the right, we have slightly changed the overview so that you have an easier perspective of what operational improvements, etc., would be. I think I need to indeed make it even a little bit more smaller, and so that you then see what the results are. Okay. Let's go like this. Yes. So let me go to a operational use case. So you are, for instance, and I think I selected it here. So in this case, I have selected a area. In this case, Zagreb ACC, just by coincidence, no pre-plan or whatever, making that selection. I just selected Zagreb ACC, And now for the purpose of, let's say, a operational cost-benefit analysis or assessment, I've put all my operational improvements on 0, because I want to be able to isolate one of those improvements to see what that would do in terms of implementation. So only the exhaust values are here, and no CO2 reduction or fuel burn reduction or anything like that. So now if you would go, for instance, to I want to make a change in the cruise phase, you can read the let's say potential operational improvements. And for instance, if you haven't implemented flexible use of airspace, or you haven't implemented free window airspace, or you want to introduce operator flight efficiency measures or anything like that, you could, from the list, you can get a perspective of what kind of operational improvement, in what kind of order of magnitude that operational improvement would be, and you would be able to select. You can select the values that you want. So let's go for 2%. No, hang on, there it is. AZERTY laptop. AZERTY certified. So let's go to 2, 3, and 4%. Just a random number, but it's more for the purpose of the demonstration than these are actual numbers. You could see this also from let's say the overall value, where you have everything. But the beauty is that if you start really from 0 and you isolate that operational improvement, it is a bit easier to see what that operational improvement would bring you in terms of CO2 reduction. And not only in the typical year where you have the CO2 reduction, but the top graph would also give you a perspective of what the cumulative effect will be over time. So you can really isolate those areas. And if you are an ANSP or a state or an airport or something, it doesn't really matter. If you have a operational improvement and you have a feeling for what that operational improvement might bring in terms of improvements, then you could enter that into Flying Green, and it will start with your operational trajectory reference points, in this case 2024. It will apply the traffic scenarios from EUROCONTROL. So those are quite sophisticated traffic projections. And with that information and your input, it would give you as a result the potential in terms of fuel reduction and CO2 reduction, so that you can use this as, let's say, additional justification in your reports. If you think, okay, that's one, I'd like to add fleet renewal, because I know that fleet revolution, because I know we are specifically active in bringing in hydrogen aircraft or electric aircraft or something like that. So I assume that 5% of the traffic, I reach an additional 5%, then the typical operational improvement or the CO2 reduction is added, obviously, and you can see again in the graph what the result would be. So I think this for the let's say from the perspective of the different operational users and stakeholders, this is quite an interesting tool to add these kind of information on the project justification and cost benefit analysis, etc. Another use case, which is more to do with airports. So I've selected a airport, again, random airport, in this case Charleroi in Belgium, and you see that these are the default values that we have based on the operational improvements from the EUROCONTROL Aviation Outlook reports, based on the projections again, and so on. Now, we know that airports normally report their LTO cycle based on standardized ICAO timestamps. So you have the landing takeoff cycle from ICAO, and I think taxi out, for instance, is something like 19 minutes of standardized time. And every airport needs to report based on these standardized timestamps. However, for instance, in Charleroi Airport, the taxi out time is not 19 minutes. So it's always an artificial value that you will report, which is completely unrealistic if you want to compare that or if you want to have an assessment from an operational point of view. Our data is based on operational data. So where we have the taxi phase in the NM system, based on airport CDM, based on aircraft operators input, based on airports input, we have, let's say, the best operational view of the landing and takeoff cycle in the FlyingGreen platform. So what you could do from an airport perspective is to use, let's say, the historical data to understand what actually happened, and you can compare that with what you need to report. By the way, FlyingGreen is not a reporting tool or monitoring tool. It's just providing the operational, let's say, the best operational data that we have, and we will calculate with the best emission tools that we have, but it's not for monitoring and reporting, because for those methodologies, there are formalized, validated methodologies, and this is not. This is just providing you with operational data. But at least from the platform, you can see this is what we need to report following the official methodologies, but this is actually what happens. And you can, again, apply your operational improvements with regards to, for instance, improvements with regards to taxi out or taxi in to those operational values. And of course, sustainable taxiing is quite a hot topic nowadays. So to electrify, let's say, the ground movements, following the report and the results from the Eurocontrol Sustainable Taxiing Task Force, typically improvements between 40 and 60% could be achieved in terms of taxi output. And you could again put that in here. Well, it's already quite high, so I can't. But if I would put, let's say, a 0, it probably has. You can see changes in the graph, quite an impact on the. Again, sorry. Quite an impact on the results, but now based on the actual operational values, and you can see those differences with the reporting. So again, for operational improvement perspective purposes, this tool will provide you with better view than what the formalized tools and the formalized methodology will bring you. I think in a very high level, like I said, there is a lot of information here. There's a lot of different ways you can use the platform. So again, I would really like you to read the disclaimers and to look at the user manual, because there's a lot more. Every time you use it, there's a lot more potential that you sort of discover. So it's important to understand what you are looking at. But I think the initial experience that we have with a number of stakeholders is that the potential of the NetZero pillar is quite significant. And well, obviously, we are hoping with the team that it's will be widely used after this onboarding event, and we are very much looking forward to get your feedback on what we have delivered and what we will deliver in the future. And that, for the moment, I think is it. So I am happy to get questions. This is the presentation. I don't know if that is high resolution enough to scan. You can also copy the link in the chat. But there is a link also indeed provided below. If you have any questions, let's say feedback, please provide us. This is feedback. Provide us with feedback on this presentation, and I'm very happy to answer possible questions that you have either in the room or via the chat or online. Anything? Do we see anything online? Maybe as a small update on, because I've used the live, so if you go to the live screen, you see exactly what I just presented. Of course, we will finalize the delivery of Flying Green in the next week. So an additional element will be introduced, and that additional element has to do with the introduction of zero-emission aircraft. So you see here that we now have revolutionary aircraft, but the user will be in a position to provide the entry into service year of electric aircraft or hybrid electric aircraft and the entry into service year of hydrogen aircraft, and with a number of deliveries per year, based also on the input that we get from the Alliance for Zero Emission Aircraft, where we are quite active in. So we have already developed, let's say, base material, master files, input material for this. So it would be also easier to see what revolutionary aircraft would bring into your specific area based on the flight networks that we identified in the Alliance for Zero Emission Aircraft. So that will be an addition, and then of course after that we will continue with improvements also based on your feedback. But this is something that you can expect also in the next couple of weeks to be added to the platform. If there's no questions, then I would certainly invite you to have a look to the live as it is already. Yeah, go ahead. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Pascal. If you, by all means, if you have more questions or you have some kind of epiphany, yeah, Donald, please.
Thanks, Don. That's actually a good question, because we haven't gone into the very much details, because I thought that we would then run out of time. But so I've explained to you that we have the top line, we have all the reduction potential, and then we end up with the green line, which is the net emissions, with the assumption that the rest of let's say the white part needs to be offset by market-based measures. We have calculated ETS allowance cost and CORSIA costs for the trajectories that we see. So for the intercontinental flights, it is CORSIA allowance that you need to buy, and for the intra-European, it's of course the EU ETS allowance that you have to buy. So those are the yellow and blue parts. Blue for the CORSIA, yellow for the ETS, and we've added additional fuel cost because of the SAF regulations. So the green part is the additional sustainable aviation fuel part compared to the conventional aviation fuel part. So these are additional costs, additional environmental costs to airlines, and this view will present you with the total costs for all the traffic that you have selected in that particular overview. But you could go to an average cost per flight. And then, of course, we cannot divide between ETS and CORSIA anymore, because it's just, let's say, a combination of this. But this is the blue part, and still the SAF part is the additional SAF costs are presented here in green. And there you see that we have an additional cost per flight in this particular overview of 1,600 euros going up to close to 5,000 euros per flight in 2050. Now, I don't know specifically if you can fully offset, or let's say fully take SAF as a CO2 reduction potential into consideration, or that you still need to take into account the life cycle assessment values. So that means that you cannot deduct the full SAF part, but still a part from SAF needs to be taken into consideration as still net emissions. But we have that option in here as well. So we can fully exclude the SAF part, which will reduce then the ETS costs, or we can take life cycle assessment values into consideration. So this is basically what is the cost graphs are presented.
There's one
from Jerry. Does the base scenario for improvements take into account estimated environmental benefits for plant operational improvements? No. So you see indeed on the, thank you for that question. You see on the what if, the 3 different scenarios that we have. And these are only the traffic growth scenarios. So initially in the Flying Green platform, we had the scenarios and that included everything. So now we have only basically these are generating the traffic lines. And it will change a little bit, let's say, the assumptions here. But in the end, it is necessary for you to include your values in those areas. We start with the EUROCONTROL default values. But essentially, these are only traffic growth scenarios, so not taking into account operational improvements that much. So you would see, of course, that, let's say, in the high scenario, we have a bit more operational improvement, but you are able to reduce that immediately if you like. So that's really the intention for the platform, is that you use it with your values, not specifically with the EUROCONTROL values. Is for information, and that is very useful, of course, as well. But the intention is that you provide that you can input your values and see what you think your local situation would reflect towards the future, based on the reference operational data that we have, and on the traffic growth figures that are from EUROCONTROL. Other questions?
Any more questions from the room or online? Please feel free even to raise your hand and speak up if you're online, if that's easier for you. Yes, we have one.
Yes, maybe a question.
Thank you.
To know if it's possible to visualize a worldwide estimation.
Thanks, Vincent. A good question. Short answer, for the moment, no. We have all the information inside the network management area. So let's say the European area. We have information about departures from the European area and arrivals to the European area, and let's say assumptions about the global trajectories. So that's the full trajectory view. But for instance, in that view, we don't have overflights for Europe. So we don't have a global perspective of the of emissions in the platform. So it's from that point of view, the answer is no.
We have another hand, Catherine.
Yes, hello, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay, hello, everyone. So I'm Catherine Mart from the Environmental Affairs section in the Swiss Civil Aviation Authority, and also co-rapporteur of FESG from the Cape. So that's where I'm coming from, and I would like to know where the data source is for the fuel, the SAF, in particular the SAF price. And I'm sure Rachel can also say she knows why I'm interested in that, with all the support we have to bring to the different work in Cape. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question. So the information, or let's say the source data related to sustainable aviation fuel. So we start with starting from the RefuelEU mandate with regards to introduction of SAF into this mix as the default values. So the 6% by 2030, including, let's say, the 1.2 for the synthetic, up to 70% finally by 2050. The the values that we use in the economic part, so the SAF price, the low, moderate, and high, again, are aligned with the SAF prices that we use in the Aviation Outlook Reports 2050. So if you go to that report, you will see the assumptions that we have for the SAF prices in the different scenarios.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question, or was there another aspect that you asked for?
No, it's okay. I shall check in the Aviation Outlook report. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone. If in the meantime you have an epiphany, as I said during a break, and think of the question or potential use case or something that is bugging you, Pascal's going to be here, so you can even catch him during the break, or by all means write to us. You can use our standard email to approach us if you don't know our specific email, so aviation.sustainability@eurocontrol.int. Also, we do have this mini survey, which we kindly ask you to answer. There are only 3 questions, so it doesn't require too much time, but it will help us actually to see what's next. As I said, we are building this platform in cooperation with all of you, so we really want to know what is useful for you, what is missing, what else can we do. So by all means, try to answer that. And I saw one more hand actually raised, if I'm not mistaken. There was one hand raised, no?
I see that you raised your hand.
Well, I didn't touch anything. I don't know what's going on. No? Okay. I can't even learn anything. Okay, in that case, thank you, Pascal, very much. We'll move on to the next pillar, which is ClimAdapt, and we'll welcome Rachel actually to show us the several use cases from the ClimAdapt pillar. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Tamara. Good morning, everybody. So just bear with me 1 second while I work out the Okay, great. Thank you. So you just click, it appears. Okay, so ClimAdapt is the second pillar of Flying Green, or the second element of the platform. Pascal has just focused on the climate mitigation, decarbonisation aspects. ClimAdapt takes the opposite view, and it looks at what the potential impacts, risks of climate change might be for the sector. So, for example, if we're going to experience stronger storms because of climate change, what does that mean for operational disruption? If we're going to experience higher temperatures, what does that mean for passengers and personnel thermal comfort? So it looks at those various aspects, and it tries to provide a range of solutions to support stakeholders in, first of all, carrying out climate change risk assessments. It doesn't provide a risk assessment methodology, to be clear. There are several in existence already, but it helps to provide input to a climate change risk assessment. It helps to provide input to a climate change risk assessment and to help to identify adaptation solutions. So there are 5 main aspects to the tool. There is a high-level screening tool, and this is kind of a precursor to a climate change risk assessment. It's to establish your current level of understanding of what you do and don't know about what the climate change impacts might be for your specific organisation. We have the high-level economic assessment tool, and this is to give an indication of the scale of costs that you might incur from an increase in climate change related disruption or events. We have the repository of potential impacts and adaptation measures. So this is a database of potential impacts according to climate effect or physical climate phenomena, and then potential adaptation measures that you could consider to address those impacts. So it is non-prescriptive, it provides options for consideration, it doesn't propose specific measures for specific impacts. Then we have the repository of risk assessment and guidance. So this intends to bring together the existing guidance and information that is out there. It's disparate, it's in many different places from many different sources. So what we've tried to do is to bring everything together in one place so that you have a ready database of information that you can look at. And finally, we have the checklists for risk assessment and adaptation planning, which are to support when designing the process for carrying out a risk assessment and implementing an adaptation plan. And I'll show you those in a moment. So what we're going to do today, as Pascal did, we're going to switch to a demonstration of the actual tool. I'm going to give a very quick overview of a few of the elements that are new to ClimAdapt since we did the last demonstration after the last release, which I think was January. So we have added a couple of new elements now. So I'll show you those. And then we have two use cases. One is for an organization to do a high level look at potential climate impacts and adaptation measures. And the other is for using the economic assessment tool to get an indication of the scale of costs that might be incurred from a climate change event. Now, just 1 second. There we go. Okay, so we are now in the tool itself. So this is the landing page that you can see here. And on the landing page, you can get a sort of high-level indication of the various climate change effects that you might experience in each region. So these are IPCC climate change regions. You have Northern Europe, Western, the Mediterranean, for example. Doesn't have Iceland there. Just a second. Okay, great, thank you. So what you can see here is the high-level climate change effects in that region. And what we have. Thank you, Tamara. So what we have that is new for this release is EUROCONTROL has a new member state. I think it's our 42nd. So that's Iceland. So we have now integrated Iceland into the map, and Iceland are actually in a different IPCC region. So we've integrated the information for that IPCC region into the map as well. The other things that are new is we have, as we just mentioned, the repository of information. So here you can see that it is arranged by effects, then by impacts, and then we have information on climate change, risk assessment and adaptation planning. And the final thing that is new for this release is that we now have adaptation planning checklists for 4 different stakeholder groups. So in the last release, we only had the checklist for states. We now have one tailored to airline operators, air navigation service providers, and airports. So there are obviously, as you would expect, a lot of similarities in the basic process that each stakeholder group would apply, but there are some slight differences that we've tried to capture in these lists. And the other new feature we have is that you can now download the report once you've once you're working it. I won't open it right now because it will flip me to another screen, and then we have to, it will disrupt the viewing again. But as you make changes to the checklist, you can save them and download them as you go. Okay, so the first use case we were going to look at was the repository, using the repository of impacts and adaptation measures to get an indication of the types of impacts that an organization might experience, and then the types of adaptation measures that might be available. So you can see that you can have various different stakeholder groups, airports, NSPs, airline operators. I think we are going to look at an airport. And then you have the option to look at different climate change effects and what those impacts might be. So I think you can look at all of them together, or you can look one by one. So as a starting point, let's look at temperatures. And then you also have various different, or actually let's look at storms. This might be more. Then you have various different risk categories there. So you have business and economics, operations, infrastructure, people. So that's passengers and personnel. So again, you can look at them individually, you can look at them all together. So if you look at operations, then what you have is a list of potential risks or vulnerabilities for airports from storms or stronger storms, such as disruption to traffic, damage to infrastructure, disruption to ground transport access, and the types of adaptation measures that you could implement. If you then switch to look at infrastructure, here you can see, actually here the list is rather longer. You have various different infrastructure impacts, such as loss of power supply, impacts to fuel supply, and then a list of potential adaptation measures that you can introduce, such as securing assets, reinforcing infrastructure, for example. And so then what you can do is work through systematically to look at what the potential impacts might be. You can look at them side by side, or you can consider what the combined, if you have temperatures and storms and precipitation, what are the potential impacts and adaptation measures that you might need to address. And this is also downloadable or exportable as well. So you can, once you've got your impacts of relevance, then you can download them. You can also look at different stakeholder groups side by side. For example, you might want to see how the difference in how an airport or how an airline might be impacted by the same measure. Okay, so it's quite easy to play around with, as you can see. Just click each button and you can move between the different options. And then the other use case we were going to look at was using the economic assessment tool. So here, for example, we'll use an airport again, but it can be equally valid for an ANSP or an airline. It's looking at an indication of the kind of cost that okay, the indication of the kind of cost increase that you might experience from an increase in climate change related events. So it is an estimation, so some caveats there, and also just to stress that it is always good to use your own data, but this can give you an indication, and it can help you to make decisions about the extent to which you need to implement adaptation measures. So the use case is, for example, an airport is expecting to see an increase in major storms, which are going to impact its operations, potentially impact its infrastructure. So here you have a set of potential severity values ranging from insignificant to grave, the most serious, and some indicative values. Those are based on actual historical data, but of course, they're averages. There will be big variations across organizations. So the intention is to give an indication rather than a precise value. The other thing I should just say at this point is that I can take no credit at all for designing this tool. It was my colleague Tamara, who is sitting at the right of me here. This is her baby. So I'm happy to have the opportunity to present it today, but all the effort was Tamara's. So once you've got to this point, you're looking at a potential increase in major storms at an airport, and then you have various cost categories that you can select. So say, for example, if you have a loss of service at the airport, that's probably, let's say that's a significant cost. Then you have other cost categories such as OPEX and CAPEX. So we'll select a few to get an indication. You also have legal and regulatory impacts. Some might not be applicable, some might be insignificant. You have an insurance payoff, which of course is a positive value, and loss of reputation, which can lead to longer term impacts. So once you've selected your potential severity levels for each one, then you can look at the likelihood of the event occurring. So say for the moment, let's say we look at Brussels, in the Brussels airport here in Belgium. The airport might get impacted by a major storm, let's say at the moment once a year. But perhaps with climate change, that might start to occur every 6 months. So then once you've selected your likelihood, then you can have a look at your results. So just to stress here that this is a scale, these are indicative values to give an indication of the extent of the risk involved. These are not actual values. So the lower the score, the lower the risk, and vice versa. And then you can click in to get an indication of some indicative values. But again, just to emphasize, these are averages, and we do recommend carrying out a similar exercise with your own data. And you can see here that the values are quite low. So let's have a look. If we put in some higher values, let's say we think the loss of service is going to be damaging, and perhaps OPEX and CAPEX costs more significant, and reputational cost may be more significant, and that we think those storms are not going to happen just once every 6 months, they're going to happen once a month, which is hopefully a worst case scenario, but we never know. So here you can see that the values are much higher, and this is the likelihood versus the severity cost, and this gives you an indication that you are likely to expect much higher costs, and perhaps is an indication of the cost of inaction, and that there would be some value in taking preemptive action. Okay, so I think that is pretty much the two user cases. I'm just going to go back to the home screen, and then I think we have some time for some questions. Okay, so here we also have a ClimAdapt survey. I have no idea what it's going to ask you, But please do feel free to give, yes, Sabine prepared this, thank you Sabine, to give your feedback. I think one thing we're really looking for is input on what else you think there might be value in adding to the platform. I think we've got a fairly well-rounded package now of guidance, information on impacts, support to risk assessment, but we do have the capacity to make a few additional adjustments or add a few additional elements. But before we do that, what we really wanted to understand is what would be useful for users. Is there anything that you think is missing, anything that you think would support your organization in climate change risk assessments, identifying impacts, adaptation measures? So I will open it to the floor, and if there are any questions online or in the room.
You can save your work. Can you explain a bit more about that?
Yes, good question. Thank you. Yes, so what you can do if you log in, there's a process to create an account or profile, and then you can log in. And then, for example, if you are looking at different combinations of impacts and adaptation measures, you can save those, or you could save output from the economic assessment tool, or you could save the climate change risk assessment adaptation checklist, for example, as you're working through. So you can keep copies of all of your work there, as well as having the option to download. So especially, for example, with the checklist, if that might be something that you're using over a period of time. So rather than, okay, you can download a copy or print it off. But if you want to have an active copy that records your latest activity, you can do that by creating the account. And the account is also valid for the other 4 pillars as well. So I think it's one account for the whole platform. Yeah, it's one account for the whole platform. So you can save all of your work across the 4 platforms in one place. Okay, so thank you very much. If you do have any input on where we could go next with the platform, anything else it needs, or any feedback on any specific aspects, then of course, please do feel free to get in touch. Thank you.